It's obvious that the 1989 season started out with a lot of great...
Can have a bad day at the high banks of Monadnock, as Eddie LaVoy suddenly finds out. But the day just doesn't end there. It continues. Roger Godin makes contact. Dick McCabe goes around. And in the pros, Mike Gramellini gets some help from Funky Karen. Tony Papale squeaks by with car number 14. Modified excitement. Bruce D'Alessandro looking good. Rick Fuller cuts a tire with car number 6. 3 wide, the story in the pros. Teddy Hebert cuts back across the track and takes out Chris Kopech. And you know, you're not supposed to stop on the front straightaway. And if you do, well, this is what happens. Have you ever wondered why they call this division the pros? Take a look. Maybe you can decide the answer. And Wade Cole gets diced up and crossed up. Dan Avery and Bob Pulvereri get walled in the process. And did the Reds really take out John Zavisa? Or did Jerry Marquis, Ricky Summers get some help from Ed Kennedy? Tom Rosati and Brian Crunden get crossed up and around. No stars here, but 3 wide of the story at Star Speedway. 2 go around and 1 will get away. The rest of the field will scramble. And in the pros at Thompson, Joe Nemorowski does a 360. So does Beckman, as everyone manages somehow to get by. They dice it up, bounce it off the wall, and bring it back to the line. Some lose and some win in this game at the Big T. And at the always sold-out Thunder Road, Robbie Crouch goes way, way out of the ballpark and out of the way. More excitement for the Modified Tour at Waterford Speedbowl, and before the event begins, it ends for Ed Plemke Jr., Mike Iwanitzko, and more of the frontrunners of the Modified Tour. George Kent gets backed up. Tom Butler in the late models gets crossed up. Bill Rondo gets away. Matt Scramble here, and Tarski stuck on the outside. Then back at the Stafford Motor Speedway, Mike Capaceni slams the wall at a ton in turn 1. Jawanski goes around. Willie Hardy cuts cross in front of Jerry Pearl as Paquette gets locked up. Tommy Bowles goes for the long slide into the truck and then returns into the competition. Back in Monadnock, it was almost good enough for good enough, not good enough for Jerry Marquis, as Wes Rosner is involved with car number 4. Jerry Marquis goes up over Ed Kennedy, and that's the story there as Bruce D'Alessandro goes spinning. And a wild flip for the Outlaws. Kenny Brightville has a problem. Billy Decker and Doug Hoffman come together and make it 3 guys with a problem now. Hearts flying everywhere here. And more problems on dirt, just like as predicted. And you know the old saying, you can't keep a good man down, can definitely be applied here at the Loudon Classic. He's down, he's up, and he's back in the competition. John Zavisa and Bob Pulvereri come together. Dan Avery squeaks by and goes on to win the event. At the Ridge, the Cusacks own the real estate, but Joe Bessie just bought the farm. For the Act Course Tour, Yvonne Bedard does some skating. Ralph Nason is involved as the rest of the field gets away. Back to the Thompson Speedway, Mike Christopher in trouble with car number 82. He slams the wall hard, and that's just the beginning. More on dirt, sideways. Well, too much of a good thing is just too much. At the high banks, Tony Morehouse and Wade Cole come together. Brian Schofield and Bruce D'Alessandro get away. And the Reds, he gives Jerry Marquis a shot, then shows the worst of the wear here. Yellow flag is out. That means caution. Funky Karen says caution wasn't good enough. Wes Rosner and Funky Karen come together. Rosner sees the dust and the smoke. They all somehow get away. Brad Frog is crossed up in the SK. Scott Gorman goes around. There's a lot of mixing up here. Pro stock competition. Bumper tag is the story. Ed Carroll is involved. A super shot in the supers as Dave Samard literally slams the wall hard at the Star Speedway. And then there's more excitement. Super modifieds, Art Russo and Russ Wood as Wood goes way out of line. This divided the group. Drew Finoro and Jeff Horn would lock horns, and the 2 groups would part separate ways. Finoro would get away. The next night at Hudson, Jeff Horn and Frankie Interno locked together, and this cost them both more than just a victory. At the Oxford 250, Dave Davis and Mike Olson come together as Ron Lamell will kind of get away. Joe Bessie and the rest of the field is able to scramble by in this massive mix-up here. At the park, Brian Schofield gets crossed up. Ricky Summers stops on the racetrack. Brad Hightower comes in and makes contact, and so does several others. John Lobo goes up, and over of Mike Como. And Reggie Ruggiero gets some help from Hirschman. Slams the wall hard as Wayne Anderson takes the long stay slide down through the center of the infield. Ricky Fuller gets up on Wade Cole, then somehow backs down on the racetrack as John Zaviso will tangle. Jimmy Broderick is involved. Eddie Spires goes flying with car number 3X. Bob Potter somehow gets away, while the Reds takes a bath in turn 2. Tony Hirschman has a tough time adjusting to the quarter mile at Riverside and goes around. And at the high banks of Monadnock Motor Raceway, Jerry Marquis and Wade Coe come together once again. Marquis suffers the worst of the wear one more time. John Rosati is on a roll, then Beckman gives him some help, and Jim McCallum squeaks on by. Rosati will return to the hunt. Then Bob Bedora gets crossed up. Art Caruso and Bedora are locked together, and Caruso shows the worst of the wear once again. Down the back straightaway, Craig Smith is a setting duck when fire erupts from beneath his feathers with car number 94. At the Ridge, Pete Rondo leads the charge. Dave Pinkham and Willie Elliott get crossed up, and that's just the beginning, as Pinkham goes on to win. Tom Baldwin slams the wall hard in turn number 1 with car number 03 this time. And off the turn, Rick Sleepy Knapp gets crossed up and goes around. Christopher is involved. Moose Hewitt, well, he was almost okay. And Tony Hirschman backs up things on the outside. That creates havoc. Mike McLaughlin is involved, Jerry Marquis, Charlie Pastrick, Stan Greger. And at the Act Tours Tour, Ralph Mason has a problem when Dave Dion takes off the nose of Paul Richardson with car number 07. Fire erupts, and then more trouble erupts. At the Thompson Speedway, Gomo gets it up on 2. At Pocono, Ricky Fuller slams the wall hard. Tom Baldwin makes the mistake of moving once again. And if you wanted to see a real demo, the place to see it was the Act Tours Tour at Seekonk Speedway. Paul Richardson was okay, then Jeff Stevens hit Dave Dion. Buzzy Bezanson was right in the middle of things, and Larry Hebert got crossed up, and Bezanson slammed the wall hard. That was just the beginning. Randy McDonald drove around in a convertible. Then on the last lap, it seemed nobody wanted to cross the start-finish line. At Stafford, another score for the Modified Tour. And back at the Ridge, Lucien Roslow slams one of the regulars at the Ridge. Then suddenly, Larry Cates suddenly turns right and then explodes with car number 7. For the Course Tour, Dave Dion leads the charge. Suddenly, Leclerc gets up on top of LePage. And at Lee USA, it's a big pile once again in turn number 4. And Mike Douglas does some cleanup work with his super at the end of the year. And